Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson. I'm coming to you from my home office. It's interesting. We've been doing these mailbags here inside the Red Raiders and RaiderPower.com for years and years, and most of them have taken place, on Texas Tech's beautiful campus at various locations all over, which has been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of behind the scenes stories with that. That's been a lot of fun. But when we first started doing this, we actually were in this home office. Is when I the very first mailbag was just me by myself answering questions, and it was cringy to see how awkward it was. So hopefully this won't be quite as awkward. We've been doing mailbags, copy format recently, so I thought, I'm going to do a video, go old school, go back to the beginning, and do another one here from my home office here. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into y'all's questions. We have some good ones. First one comes from OBX Raider, who wants to know, do we think Texas Tech will get any commits before the virus lockout is over? Now, this question was posed on the board just a week ago, and man, there's been 2 commits since then. So obviously the answer is yes. Those 2 commits were both tight ends, both 2021 tight ends, big time guys who have multiple Power 5 offers, multiple Big 12 offers, one being Jed Castles from Wichita Falls Rider. 6'6", 215 is what he's listed on 24/7 Sports. The other one being Mason Tharp of Spring Klein High School in the Houston area. He's listed at 6'7", 225. These guys, like I said, combined, I think they have like 40-something offers, with many of them being Power 5, of the Power 5 variety. So big gets for the Red Raiders. I think everyone is looking for, when is it going to happen on the defensive side of the ball? There's 4 offensive commits. Now look, it's Texas Tech. Defense always seems to come later. Offense are the first guys to jump on board, I think for obvious reasons. But there are some guys that they're, in the mix for, that they've recruited for a long time now. I don't know how long this lockout's going to be, and I don't know when exactly these guys are going to commit. But Landon Watson, the 4-star defensive end, he has a lot of options, but he's visited Texas Tech several times. His best friend, Chooks Nubwoko, is on the roster. He has a lot of ties to Texas Tech, so he's somebody to watch. Demarion Alexander, he's a linebacker out of China Springs. He had Texas Tech in his top 4 schools recently. I'm not sure exactly when he wants to commit, but those are a couple of guys to watch who I think that the Red Raiders have a really good shot with. Next question comes from Captain Popsicle, who wants to know if I think the quarantine looking like it's going to last a while, are these kids going to start making decisions earlier than usual this cycle since they can't visit? Well, I think that's a really good question, because when you get to recruiting in general, people have always asked me these kind of broad questions, and I think there are some broad answers that you could come up with, but I really try to take people's recruitment on an individual basis, because I think ultimately it has pushed back a lot more recruits than not. It's pushed back their decisions because they can't visit. I equate it to, you're probably not going to buy a car you don't test drive, right? Now there are rare occasions that does happen, but it's rare. So yes, on one hand, I think it is delaying a lot of recruits' decisions. But on the other, you see a guy like Jed Castles, which I mentioned earlier in the video. He said basically with the coronavirus, everything going on, he was just, he wanted to be committed. He had already visited Texas Tech. He knew that's where he wanted to be. He was going to just double check and kind of look at some other schools. But I think the coronavirus actually moved up his decision. So I think it just varies. It depends on where each recruit is in their recruitment. Guys that were waiting to take visits later in spring and in the summer, probably it's pushed it back. But guys who have already been visiting have a better idea of where they want to go. It actually might be moving it up. All right, speaking of the coronavirus, Panther Cat wants to know, has everything being shut down, just all the fallout from this, has it helped Texas Tech possibly in retaining Davide Moretti and Jemias Ramsey? Well, there's no doubt that it has with Davide, with Morrow, because he said so. He was quoted basically as saying so, and it was inferred in an article by Sportando. I'm sure I'm butchering that. An Italian publication, where basically he said, yeah, he was leaning towards going pro He wanted to work out for some NBA scouts and, of course, some European pro clubs. He wanted to talk with them and was looking probably to go that route. But he said since all this has happened, he hasn't been able to do that. He has a scholarship at what he described as a great school, one of the top programs in the country. He gets to go play for Chris Beard a fourth year. And look, there's no mistake. Everybody's expecting a big run next year from what's going to be a very talented roster. They bring back a lot of guys, and they're adding to it big time. They're adding a lot of talent, the high school ranks, and then through the transfer market that they're looking at. Morrow, if he does come back, would be huge. And I think, the way this has happened, so I guess a silver lining would be that you might get Davide Moretti back because of it. Now, Jahmi'us Ramsey, I'm not sure, to be quite honest. I still think that if he gets a first round grade, that it looks like a foregone conclusion that he's going to be a first round draft pick, I think he's gone. Now, it may have delayed his announcement of what he's doing, but I do think that in the end, Jahmi'us Ramsey will likely go. Now, hey, as our current reality has shown all of us, anything is possible. So perhaps Ramsey will return, and perhaps it'll be the coronavirus and everything being shut down, kind of delaying things, messing up people's timeline, sports timeline, his timeline will help in retaining Jahmi'us Ramsey. All right, Juicebox wants to know, who is Texas Tech's ace go-to recruiter on the football staff? I think that's a really good question. I think I would have said Derek Jones, just because every recruit I talk to, he's offering so many guys, and even the recruits he recruited when he was at Duke before he came to Tech. I mean, they just talk about what an impact their conversations have made with him, more than really just about any other coach I've covered in college football recruiting. So I've been really impressed with that. But then we're talking about closing, right? Like who, if you had to have somebody close other than Matt Wells, you said in your question, Juicebox, who would I choose? Well, given the last week, I gotta say Luke Wells is up there. His brother, he's had a tremendous rate in terms of closing. I mean, you look at Travis Kuntz from a class ago. You could argue that was the biggest get in terms of getting of beating top competition like TCU, Oklahoma State, some other schools. Georgia was sniffing around. They didn't officially offer, but they were looking at it. Kuntz was one of the highest rated guys coming out of junior college football at a position that Tech just really needed to hit on, and Coach Wells landing Travis Kuntz was huge. And then, just like I said this week, landing two big-time tight end commits in Jed Castles and Mason Tharp. I mean, those three alone, you look at the competition, you're beating teams like Oklahoma State, TCU, Iowa State, Kansas State. You got, just in conference, those are the teams that you're beating out for those guys. But then there's other Power 5 schools such as Arizona State, really all over the country that you are beating head-to-head on for the guys that you need at a critical position. So, man, Luke Wells, I've been really impressed with what he's been able to do on the recruiting trail so far. All right, this brings us to our final question, and this is from Mr. Mustafa Mon, and I'm going to have to edit this a little bit, but he said, did that blank Carol Blanken Baskin kill her husband? Of course, referring to Tiger King. I did watch it, and I have to say, in my opinion, absolutely, there's no doubt. At least the way it was portrayed on Netflix, her answers were very suspicious. I think just the fact that her brother, the whole part about meeting her brother who was on the sheriff's department at 3 a.m. That night, that's all very suspicious. And the way she kind of talks about it, some very specific ways to dispose of or get a tiger to eat someone. If somebody put a gun to my head, I would definitely, without hesitation, say, yeah, I think she killed her husband. That's just my opinion, uneducated, other than watching Tiger King. I know it seems like everybody has watched it. The only thing perhaps crazier than our reality of the coronavirus would be that show, the reality of the whole tiger world. That's surreal. If it was in a movie, you'd be like, I don't believe that would be possible. But it was entertaining, like watching a train wreck. So I hope you've been entertained by this edition of the Mailbag. Thank you for all your great questions, and until next time.